So here we are, and welcome to today's webinar. And I really thank you for being here today. And this one is the sixth one from the STEM to Star series that we are organizing as the Women in Aerospace Europe Rome Local Group. And the main objective of this series is to give the opportunity to all WIA members to know inspirational people working in this amazing sector and role models. And so all the invited guests will be very special representative of the international aerospace and STEM fields. I would like to underline that this event is inside the campaign We Men in Aerospace that has the aim to demonstrate that the WIA Rome Local Group is open to all kinds in accordance with the WIA Europe guidelines. So after this brief introduction, I will give the floor to today's guest, Stefano Antonetti. Therefore, I kindly ask you to turn off your cameras and microphones. And in the second part of the webinar, you will have the chance to ask some questions to Stefano. And you can write them directly into the chat. So for today's webinar, I have the pleasure to introduce you Stefano Antonetti that will share with us his experience and inspiring career in management, sales, and business development. And I met Stefano for the first time when I was working in the Orbit in Como. And I remember that at that time, the CEO, the Orbit CEO, I was in Istanbul, and he said me that a new person joined the group, and that person was Stefano. And when I first met him, I was moved by his energy and cheerfulness. And then while working with him, his positive attitude and people caring. So I'm really happy and glad that he accepted our invitation today and that you, Stefano, are here with us. So Stefano holds a master's degree in space engineering in collaboration between the University of Rome La Sapienza and Delft University of Technology. And he has worked as space system engineer in Paris for 7 years, focusing on feasibility studies for space exploration and the environmental impact of space activities. Then he came back to Italy in 2014, and he immediately joined the Orbit as a program manager for most of the activities done in collaboration with the European Space Agency. Now Stefano is in charge of the business development of the Orbit Group, drawing the future of space transportation and logistics. So now, Stefano, the floor is yours, and you can present yourself to today's participants.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you very much to Women in Aerospace. I'm really glad to be part of this webinar. And it's a great opportunity to share my experience with you. I hope that will be useful for somebody that wants to take the engineering career or in the space field. So yeah, I'm a space engineer, of course. But most importantly, I'm a space enthusiast. I think this is something very important in our industry. That means that everyone working in space industry is mostly a very passionate, because we could work in any other field of engineering. There are much more dynamic sometimes environments, but space is very, very peculiar, something that can move a lot people's imaginations. I can really move and passionate all the choices and the different actions we do in our work. So it's very, very interesting. And after almost more than 15 years working in this field, I can tell that it's very, very inspiring working with a lot of people like you, Elena, and all your guests that are so passionate, so devoted to this work. Indeed, I always dreamed about space since I was a kid. Like, I think most of us have dreamed to be an astronaut or to go on space or to see one day living on the moon or on the stars. So since I was a kid, I always had this dream. I had my telescope when I was 7 years old. I spent the night with the sleeping bag outside the balcony to watch the stars. And finally, when I got to decide which kind of university I wanted to do, which kind of faculty, I did that really not choice, but doing space engineering. And so I did 3 years of studies at University of Rome. Then I started the Erasmus project at the Technical University of Delft. And I was supposed only to be 6 months, but then I stayed there for 2 years. I did the whole master, my master thesis, and then I graduated on space system engineering. And it was a very interesting to me to see both the, let's say, Italian side of university and the Dutch side, which is a little bit more European and maybe more Anglo-Saxon that what we are used to do to the work, to be in Italy. Then I worked for a small space consultancy company called For Space, based in Ireland and in France, Paris. So I initially worked in Ireland for about 1 year, and then I moved to Paris, where I lived for 7 years. So this was a small consultancy company. We were a contractor of the European Space Agency in Paris, and we were doing mostly feasibility studies for space exploration. And we started then working on the first activities in ESA for assessing the environmental impact of space activity and the sustainability of space activity, so related to space debris, but not only, also how a space project can indeed impact environmentally on Earth. So after 7 years, I decided that my career in Paris was over, and then I was looking somewhere else to continue my journey. And actually, I wanted to explore United States, especially Silicon Valley, because at the time there were a lot of new space startups that were trying to change the paradigm of space, of the space industry. The so-called new space was starting at that moment. There were companies like Spire, like Planet, that were trying to make satellites cheaper and to run constellations of more satellites to sell commercially their products. Despite that, I went to the United States for about 2 months looking for work, but then I met the orbit. So as Elena said, in 2014, I met Luca Rossettini, I met Elena, and I decided to go back to Italy and join the orbit. At that time, we were probably less than 10 people, Elena. I don't even remember, but we were very, very few people, and it was indeed an amazing journey. I mean, beside the fact that the orbit is indeed a very nice company to work with, being part of a small company, starting from the beginning with an idea, not much money, a bunch of motivated people, and growing up to 120 people are right now, and with 3 satellites launched and another on the pad, another launching in December, and that was really an amazing journey, and I'm very proud to be to contribute to this wonderful experience. Was really something I learned a lot from that, and I really had the chance to grow professionally with the company. So to learn on the field what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to start from an idea, growing it up to a product, a service that you actually sell to customer. And it's funny, but I remember somebody told me it would be okay, space is nice, space is cool, but it would be very nice to see an happy customer with something that you actually have built. I never thought was something so important, but actually now I realize it's something very fulfilling when you see that something you took years to develop, to build up, and to implement, finally could make somebody happy, could help somebody else to deliver their own services, to make happy their customers. And it was something indeed very fulfilling. Now, so as Elena said, I started as program manager, then I moved on institutional business, and then I moved to business development. Now in charge of the business development of the whole group in the orbit. And what business development means? It means basically to create more value for the company. So this is mostly talking with customer at early stages to drive the development of new products and services, and updating the existing products and services, updating their business model, updating their development plans, and basically make it better and cheaper for the customers. The Orbit is now one of the leading company in Europe, I would say in the world, for space transportation. We still have the vision to be one of the leading companies in the world for in-orbit servicing and logistics. So I think that's it, Elena, for this part.
Okay, yes, thank you, Stefano, for sharing with us these information. So I'm really happy of this, and I would like to make you some questions too.
Sure.
And so I'm a bit curious about to know what are the main elements that you followed and that guided you in reaching your current position of business development manager.
Okay, that's it might seem stupid, but one thing I find out to be very important to doing what I do are soft skills. It's so important to communicate with people. I mean, companies are made of people, after all, and communication, being able to discuss with people and understand what they need, and understand exactly how you can solve a problem. I think that's the main driver of a business developer. And that's somehow, some cases, not all the cases, more important than technical skills, because you will always find somebody that are more skilled than you for to implement technical choices. But being able to capture what are the needs and translate them into a technical solution, I think it's very, very important. It needs a lot of talking, a lot of listening too. And, by the way, I think that communication in general, it's one of the topic that could solve or at least mitigate most of the, issue we have in equality or quality of work environment in general. Sometimes we are not that keen to share our impressions with our co-workers or even our bosses, our management. We keep our problems for ourselves. We don't communicate our ideas, our way to improve actually our situation at work and the quality of our work. So as always it happens, communication is really very, very important to make things happen. Another thing that always guided me, it's this, allow me the term, this romantic vision of space. I think space exploration has its own dignity. Human beings are explorers. I mean, most of the successes in history are driven by exploration. And space is definitely next frontier. Now our generation has a great opportunity to use the resource space, because space is indeed a natural resource, to use this resource to our well-being, to our welfare, to improve our quality of life, and to improve the situation of the people on our planet. And we need to use that resource in a responsible way. But if we manage to do that, there is indeed a lot of possibilities behind that. And we shouldn't be afraid to dream about space. And even if maybe when we talk about space exploration, we think about spaceships that go on Mars, on the moon, and moon stations and hotels in space, this kind of stuff. But we shouldn't also forget that sometimes basic services like Earth observation, telecommunication, or navigation could really change the way we conduct our life. And so I think this kind of vision, using that resource in a responsible way in order to improve our life, I think it's something that I always look at when I try to develop a new product or a new service.
Thank you, Stefano. So I would like to connect to what you said, asking you or discussing with you, how do you think we can use the space in a sustainable way?
That's a tricky question. Well, it's somehow it's very easy. It's like when you go on a park on the mountain, you just need to leave that environment in the way you have found it, and that's a basic rule of of politeness. Basically, when you go to somebody's place, or when you go to a restaurant or you go in a park, you always leave that place in the exact way you found it, or even better. That's what we should do ideally with space. I know it's just an ideal. It's not easy at all. Probably will never be possible to some extent because we do have an impact on space activity. But indeed, we shouldn't forget that it is possible to preserve the resource space as much as we can. It is possible to remove satellites at the end of life in such a way that we don't create debris. It is possible to not create unnecessary infrastructure. It is possible to not make things exploding in space or do not contaminate other planets and so on. Sometimes this vision isn't in line with technology development. Of course, we should apply a right trade-off, which is not easy to find, but we have really that possibility. I mean, we are really in the right direction. We are all very conscious right now of the environmental challenges on ground. We know how to translate those challenges in space, and we know what are the risks. So we have all the elements to make the right choices. And actually, space industry is making the right choice. We are really going the right direction. We just need not to forget those targets.
Yes, I think that your words put me in mind the word respect. We should respect Earth and space in the same way. So I would like to ask you how your experiences in different countries, in different universities, and in different companies helped you in building your working values. So the values that you mentioned.
That's a very interesting question. I was indeed very lucky. I was a privileged to work in different environments. That really helped me a lot to build my personality. So starting from university, Dutch Italian universities are very different. In Italy, we are very theoretical, and in the Netherlands, they are very practical and very straight to the point of what they need to do or how things need to be implemented. So it was very interesting to see these two different approaches, and also like even the infrastructure. Like in Rome, I was in this nice university, the Faculty of Engineering in Rome, La Sapienza, is straight in front of the Colosseum. We are in a building that has 400 years old, and everything is so beautiful, but it's not functional, of course, because it cannot be that functional. Well, when you go to the Technical University of Delft, it's brand new buildings, top-notch facilities, and that was indeed a great change. And being able to work with people from all around the world when I was 21 years old, was really a shock. Probably now it's more normal, but at that moment it was really a shock, and that helped me a lot, even to learn English. Like my English was so bad, and it took me so much to try to understand how to can use my communication skills to improve my English. And so from a university point of view. Then from a company's point of view, I always worked in small startups, which actually is one of the weak points of my career. I never worked in a large company, a large organization. So there are some mechanisms that I simply don't know, like how a large, complicated structure can work in an harmonic way and to deliver results. That's something that I never seen, and I'm really eager to learn, especially now that the orbit is growing that much. I have to be honest, all places where I worked, they were very respectful people, very respectful of a balance of private life and working environment. And I was very lucky. All my colleagues were, superb, and I'm still in contact with all of them, and with most of them, I'm very close friend. And that was really, I think I was very lucky from that point of view. Even working in different environments like the Irish environment and the French environment, and then coming back to Italy again. We have this stereotype in Italy. I don't know whether it's true or not, that our industry is somehow not top level from the industrial point of view or from a startup point of view, which is absolutely not true. I mean, I found a working environment, I found a technology level, a determination of people working in the space industry in Italy that I would never imagine before moving back here. And actually, I'm so happy with that choice I made more than 7 years ago. And I'm so proud to be able to contribute to that.
Okay, thank you, Stefano. And so now I would like to go through your values in relation to gender equality and equality subject in general. So, what are your values in this sense?
That's a very touchy topic. Like, it's always, I have to say, in the engineering field, it's very difficult to talk about equality as being a man, of course, because of course, gender equality is a problem. Still, the large majority of people in space engineering are men. And of course, one of the problem of that is because we are too many men, and therefore it's always difficult. It creates kind of a barrier for women to reach. I think my general rule is that everyone should be free to express himself or herself in the work environment as much as she or he can. It's not really just about sexuality. It's also about religion or anything else, like hairstyle or dress code or everything. I think the freedom to express yourself, it makes you more comfortable. It makes you more accepted from everyone. It makes you more confident that every choice you will make on your personal life will never really affect the working environment or your working career and so on. I think giving that message is super, super important. And that would be my top value from my point of view.
Thank you. I remember that during my first working experience, I was in a big company, and there was a guy. He had really, really long Rasta hairs, and he was one of the main experienced person from the technical point of view on the exploration side. And so I was really happy at that moment to see how people in that environment were free to express him and herself without being judged. So even in this case, it's a kind of respect. I mean, if you can express yourself, but being respectful with regards to the people you are with, then I believe it's something that is really valuable.
Sure,
and so I also think that there are some risks for companies, for the aerospace entities in general, that some risks that arises when these inequalities are present. And what do you think that these two, that there are many risks on this side?
Look, as I said before, companies are made of people after all, and people are those that make things happening. Therefore, the risk is that if you don't value people, they will not value the work they do. And so they don't create value, they don't share ideas, they don't plan to be in the long term in a company. Um, like it's so important to find the right talents for, especially for a young and dynamic company like the one I work. But in general, it's so important to be able to attract talents. Then you need to keep them. Really, like a friend that you invite to your place, and you do everything to make it or her comfortable. That's super important. So if you don't face inequalities in the right way, you have this risk. But you also, I think that's all my personal opinion. Also, probably shouldn't exaggerate. Also, we should keep things balanced. We should respect everyone, and we shouldn't maybe force things in one direction or the other. And therefore, you need again to respect all the different kind of people independently from their sexual orientation, religion, again, fashion, way they look, language. And in order to do so, you need to create such a culture that your workplace is basically one of the other places where you can express yourself. Like when you go in a bar, when you go in a park, you are free, you feel free. You are encouraged to express yourself. And I think the work environment should be something really like this. And probably there could be some drawbacks, of course. There are some objective advantages to keep everyone on track. But on the longer term, I think that would improve the quality of life in a much better way. But again, we shouldn't exaggerate anyway to force this process. We should just be, let's say, to monitor, to identify what are the criticalities one by one, and to take some action. That should be, of course, on the long term. Unfortunately, we cannot solve such a big thing on this very short term. But some things, if they are addressed correctly, can change much quicker than we can imagine.
Yes, and we can relate this to your first answer about the soft skills. So being able to not judge people, it's somehow something that we can also we can educate. Okay,
sure, absolutely,
within the company. So I know that there in the Orbit you organize the innovation days every year.
Yes.
And I would like to know if you can and if you want to share with us and tell us briefly what these innovation days are and what are the main results that your group reached this year.
Yes, that's every year for 2 days. Let's say we close up the company, let's say, we run the innovation days that we call the space race. So basically, it are 2 days where people are divided in group on topics that to work on topics that we decide in the days before, and basically work on this every year. We decide different theme. So this year, by accident, was quality of work environment and inclusion, and so yeah, by accident. And actually, and my working group was on which are the measures that we can introduce in our company in the Orbit to foster, improve inclusion, gender equality, or equality in general terms. There were other working groups looking at things like how to improve the environmental impact on our activities, or how to improve mobility, so avoiding people coming by car to the company, or we're going soon to move in a new facility. So what are the features that you would like to have in the new facilities? And of course, a lot of people said we want a bar or something like that. Okay, that's another study. And so yeah, my group was about this inclusion and gender equality, and it was led by a colleague of mine, Panagiotta. She's a Greek girl. And it was very interesting. We ran a survey in the company, and we draw some conclusion which are the best actions that we can have. we first of all, I mean, one couple of numbers. We noticed that in the orbit we have 19% of women and 81% of guys, which is completely in line with industry average. But then we also made had a look on how many women apply to our vacancies. It's actually 21% to compared to 79%. So basically, the number of women working in the orbit are, respect the number of people that actually apply for working in the orbit. So that's where we need to act, because of course we cannot hire people just because of their gender. That doesn't make sense. We need to hire the best people after all. But so we need to make sure that there will be more and more people of every kind joining the orbit. So we define 4 actions. The first action is to give outside more visibility of the company culture and to show that we are very inclusive, that everyone can express himself or herself inside the company independently from gender, religion, language, I don't know, soccer team, whatever. It's okay. Then we like to start a review of the recruiting to see whether to be sure that we can reach as many candidates as possible, because probably we are not using the right channels. I don't know, I'll just make an example, but probably we're using LinkedIn where there are more men than women that are looking at our posts, or I don't know, we don't use the right channels to reach equal equal gender of people, things like this. Or maybe we use the wrong words, I don't know, something like that. So we start a review of the recruiting process. And then we also start a growth and opportunity program. So we want to make sure that everyone that we interview for a vacancy in the orbit is sure that it can, let's say, fulfill his personal life objective within the company. So whether his personal goals in his personal life are in line with the value, the culture we have in the orbit, in such a way that person can feel free and relaxed, that working with us would be, can have an easy life, can reach whatever you want to get in his life. And also, we'd like to have a kind of an outreach program. That's the 4th action. So to go on schools and university, and again to share the company culture, to give the idea that indeed if you join an engineering company, is not, the engineer is for everyone, and there are many aspects of engineering. That's not really engineering itself. That's also communications. There's also design, with a lot of design. There's all kind of different topics that can attract any kind of gender, religion, different people.
Thank you very much for sharing these informations with us. I think they are really valuable.
I hope they work.
So I would now like to quickly jump to the questions and answers session, as there are some questions that arises in our chat. And so I see that the first one is from Anastasia, and that she is asking you, how do you think we can all contribute to improve the equality in the aerospace industry?
Thanks, Anastasia, for the question. As I said before, I think we should start, the most effective thing is, as I said before, to communicate to younger generations, so high school and university, that they can fulfill their personal life objective even in an engineering company, independently from what they think, from what they want to be, and to basically to be completely transparent. I think we want to break the barrier that people don't even think to join a space engineering company because of whatever. We want to break that barrier. Maybe we won't get 50-50, probably we will never get there, but still we want just to have to make sure that we can reach as many people as possible and give that the message that there's space for everyone in a space company.
Thank you. And there's Federica that is asking you, she's thanking you for the interesting speech. And she would like to ask you, how do you see the future of space industry?
Oh, yeah. Future. Thank you, Federica, for the question. Future. I could talk for 3 hours now, but
okay, then just 3 minutes for this.
Okay.
As we have other questions then.
In a nutshell, I see a very bright future for the space industry because we are slowly finding the way to make to have a democratic access to space. When I see my mobile phone and I see that there are 4-5 different constellations of satellites in space that give me navigation, and I can see on Google Maps or any other application, my outdoor application, I can see the geography, I can see Earth. I see this as a first step for making space really useful for everyone. In the moment that everyone from his mobile phone or from wherever can buy products and services from space directly, we will really reach the point where the space market is mature. So to get back to the question, I see a future of space industry very democratic. I see that we will have a more mature market. I see as a target, as a goal, the automotive industry. We got some advisors from the automotive industry, and they tell us that the way the space industry is developing right now is very much similar to how the automotive industry has developed at the beginning of the last century. And I think somehow it's true. Of course, it's a provocation, but it's quite true. So at some point, I'm not saying that everyone will have its own spacecraft, but everyone will be using space technology every day, much, much more than we do right now, for internet, for agriculture, for our leisure, for our outdoor activities, or for emergencies, for anything really that could help our life to be better. That's how we see the future of space. And for doing that, we need infrastructure, logistics, because everything on ground works with logistics services. Anything would work without infrastructure and logistics on Earth. So it's pretty logic that the same will happen in space. We will need also infrastructure to make space safer and cleaner.
Yeah, so this is, of course, related to the sustainability topic that we touched before.
Absolutely, yes. It's a first way where, if we don't have a basket where to put our garbage, we'll just throw it on the ground, right? So that's the kind of, if we don't have a road to drive our cars, we will drive on the field. And so that's okay. Of course, the same example cannot be applied exactly in space, but that gives the idea that we need infrastructure in order to develop in a safe and sustainable way our activities in space.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefano. And there's Alice that is asking you if you can share it. How are you dealing with diversity and equality within the orbit?
The orbit has always been our startup DNA, even though we are not a startup anymore, that helps a lot. Because at the beginning, as you know, Elena, we really needed to work shoulder to shoulder and every day. And that helps to create a group of people very committed, very close one each other. And this kind of DNA, it's easy to transmit. It's actually very easy. When you show people that they can behave in the working environment in the same way they can behave in their personal life. And that comes natural to becomes natural to have a better approach to equality and diversity. And of course, we think it's a sound working environment is a place where society is mirrored as much as possible. So that it's a perfect mirror of society where you have different kind of people for different places with different kind of experience, and that makes your growth richer. So that's what we are trying to do. Again, the 4 actions that I told you before that we identified during the innovation day. So to basically disseminate the message that everyone is welcome, to go to high school and university, saying that everyone is welcome to join a space company. Everyone is accepted, no matter whatever. There are, we need everyone. We need engineers. We need people that are not graduated. We need expert in communication and design and everything. That's room for everyone. That's what we would like to. That's the way by which we want to improve equality.
Yes, I can just say that while I was there, it was really in the DNA of the company, and that I'm happy to know that now that you are 120 people, still these values are so present and so strong within the organization. So I'm really happy about this.
Thank you.
So there's another question from Alessia, and she's asking you, and she's saying that you shared that you had a very interesting and fruitful experience while studying in Delft. Was it because of the diverse environment? What did you like the most of that experience?
Oh yeah, the diverse environment was really something incredible. I mean, when I was in Rome in my university, in my class, I think there was a guy from Chile and a guy from Spain or Greece. I don't remember. I mean, just a couple of foreign students, and they were talking Italian anyway, and all the lessons were in Italian. And remember that sometimes when I was in the class in Delft, the first question the professor asked was like, is there any not Dutch speaking in the class? Sometimes I was the only one, and they immediately started to talk in English. I felt so embarrassed because like, hey, everyone, like 100 people is talking English because of me. I felt so, but actually there was no problem at all for them. And that was really, I mean, that was also inclusion. I felt accepted so quickly being a foreign, and that really was a big lesson to me. And I, of course, I had a lot of fun. Of course, it was my Erasmus. I mean, that goes without
That's
saying.
Important.
Yeah, that goes without saying. But I think that diverse environment, multinational, and multi kind of people, that was super, super inspiring for me.
Thank you. And Alice also have another question. And after so long time working within the orbit as a project manager, head of the sales department, and now as the vice president of business development, she can imagine you had also the change of managing a very diverse team. Would you please illustrate your experience with your colleagues and tell us if you came across different attitudes depending on different gender, for example?
Let's say one thing I noticed that indeed women are a little bit scared at the beginning to work in a engineering world dominated by men, and so that doesn't help, of course, and that increased the level of insecurity of of women starting working in our environment. It only goes for a couple of months, then of course it goes away. But I see that's a little bit of uncomfort in their eyes when they start to work with us from that point of view. But that, again, I think our DNA is pretty solid, and our culture is pretty solid too. So it goes pretty quickly. Fortunately enough, we are a very young team, and everyone can feel home pretty quickly. There are, I mean, it's been, it's indeed difficult to deal with people. Everyone has his own problems, struggles, and different attitudes. You got the person who's more technical and more introvert. The person is more, social and so on. But it's if you have around a strong, again, if you have around yourself a company with a little bit a mirror of society, then people can feel more comfortable. They can find the somebody to talk with, and basically, yes, to talk a lot is the most important thing. You need to be friends with everyone, real friend. That would really work as a manager.
Thank you, Stefano. And we can go through the other two questions. There's Anastasia that is saying, you worked as a space system engineer. What advice can you give to those who want to pursue a career in this direction?
Study a lot. There's probably I'm a little bit biased for my business development background, but the best system engineers I know in the orbit are those that have a good vision of the market. Because unfortunately, I say unfortunately, the best piece of technology from a technological point of view, most of the time are not the best products, and the system engineer that can understand that without somebody telling him as something more to offer, to understand, after all, we are developing products and to make somebody else happy. And even if somebody that works in systems needs to understand that when you have to design a radio, a structure, you need to think that has to fit on a bigger purpose, that has to fit on a larger system that has to make somebody happy, a customer. So yeah, if can give you a suggestion to be a good system engineer, have a look to what happens in the space industry in general, what are the trends, what direction the space industry is going, and what the different companies are doing, a little bit what the market is. That would help a lot.
Thank you, Stefano. There's Annamaria. I think she wants to ask you a question. Annamaria, please. Annamaria,
I'm trying to activate the video, but I cannot. I don't know if you have blocked.
I can. No, I didn't.
Okay, but anyway, I don't know. It is blocked. Don't want to see my face. I have a question for you, Stefano, that is coming back to the diversity. From my experience, I'm firmly convinced that this gap is small for the new generation, but this is not true, and we have to work a lot instead for the generation like my generation. What do you think about? And another question is relevant also to the role model for the women. If in your experience you find a real difference with the women approach respect to the men approach, or the career has conditioned the women in order to have a similar approach? What do you think about?
Okay, I'll start from the second question. Ciao, Annamaria. First of all, thanks for your questions. And I start from the second one. I met with a friend. I was talking with her about this, innovation days. I was like, okay, I need to think to some interesting way to, improve inclusiveness and so on. And she actually told me something which was very. I don't completely agree, but it's an interesting way to see things. She told me, you know what? You guys don't have many women in the aerospace world because all the processes, the way things have done, are made by men, and therefore men are more efficient to carry those processes. And I thought, yes, I mean, that's an interesting way to see things. Indeed, I mean, it's not necessarily true. I have to say, I don't have the elements to say whether it's true or not. But indeed, we could ask ourselves the questions whether the way we work in the engineering in a space company, or in general in big organizations, that those processes sometimes come from years and years, maybe were designed by managers who were men, and therefore much more closer to the attitude of a man. So that's an interesting angle, which I suggest you guys to think about it. I never thought about it, actually. And going to the first question, yeah, sometimes I go to meetings and yeah, there are no women and no women at all, and that's that happens a lot. And I agree with you. Now, newer generation, I'm not that young anymore anyway, but newer generation are about to break that barrier. It is true. I don't know. I think newer generation should. I mean, the example newer generation could influence the older generation. Let's say somehow. It's not easy, processes sometimes requires time, and I mean, we are anyway. I'm a manager or somebody that work on space industry. A lot of experience is anyway a very clever person. Otherwise, we would never be able to reach those positions and those seniority. Therefore, I really rely that at some point we all be able to understand that diversity is richness. And that's not many other ways to make people happy at work and therefore more efficient. I hope I answered your questions, Annamaria.
Yeah, thank you to you, Stefano.
Okay, I don't know if there's any other question from the audience. Even if we have 2 minutes more.
Wow.
So I can take the occasion to thank you, Stefano, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Elena.
It has been a very inspiring hearing directly from you and to know your achievements. And thank you also for you, to you all, for being connected with us, and for your contribution and your question. And there are other similar events that will be organized, and the Rome Local Group is looking forward to see you again. What I would like to do is to share here the links of our Facebook and Instagram page. You can see it in the chat, and you can find these informations here and also in our website. And in particular, in Instagram, we have recently started a series of posts about inspiring women that we think are perfect role models. So you're welcome to have a look. And thank you all. Thank you, Stefano, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you all, and thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you, Stefano. See you soon.
I hope so.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.